The galaxy was never a kind place. Among the stars roamed species so ancient, so terrifying, that entire worlds bent the knee before their shadows. They were the Elverians, beings of radiant beauty and horror combined. Their bodies were tall and flowing, flesh glowing faintly, as if their veins carried liquid fire. Their eyes shone like molten silver, capable of piercing through walls of iron. To weaker races, they looked like gods sculpted in terror. To themselves, they were the rightful rulers of the cosmos. When the first human distress signal echoed into their space, the Elverians expected just another dying primitive species crying into the void. They answered it, not with mercy, but curiosity. They descended on Earth's ruined orbit, their ships like floating citadels, jagged spires of black crystal. Entire fleets stretched like shadows across the sky. Humans on the ground watched in awe and terror. Some whispered that angels had come. Others whispered demons. But the Elverians themselves laughed. This species is nothing. One of them hissed through his shimmering mouth. So fragile, so ugly. Their bones break like glass, their bodies rot under disease. What arrogance to reach for the stars with such weakness. Yet there was something strange. Humans didn't cower. When Elverians first stepped into the ruined cities of Earth, skyscrapers split in half, streets flooded, and smoke still rising from decades of war. They expected kneeling. Instead, humans stared back. Dirty faces, broken bodies, but eyes burning like torches. Children clutched handmade flags. Old men stood with broken rifles they knew couldn't fire anymore. Women shielded infants, glaring at creatures 3 times their height. The Elverians were silent for the first time in centuries. One commander, towering, his armor gleaming like obsidian, stepped forward, bearing teeth sharper than blades. "Why do you look at us this way?" he demanded. "We are your end." A ragged soldier, helmet cracked, stepped forward from the human crowd. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "End? You think you're our first monsters?" He laughed, dry and sharp. "We've been fighting monsters since we learned to stand on 2 legs. And we always kill them in the end." The Elverians did not understand. For them, terror was survival. For them, fear was dominance. For humans, fear was simply fuel. The first test began. The Elverians, as they had with every conquered race, decided to amuse themselves before extermination. They unleashed beasts bred in their genetic vats, towering horrors with claws like scythes, creatures engineered to slaughter armies. The beasts descended on the humans. And for a moment, it seemed certain this fragile species would break. But humans didn't run. They threw rocks. They built traps from steel scraps. They burned the beasts alive with homemade firebombs. They fought with bare hands and teeth if nothing else remained. Men and women hurled themselves at monsters twice their size, screaming not in despair, but in defiance. One Elverian recorded the moment, whispering to his kin, "They bleed, they scream, they break, but they rise again. Again and again. What is this?" The humans, battered and bloody, rose from piles of corpses with fire in their eyes. And in that instant, the Elverians felt something they had not felt in thousands of years. Not dominance, not hunger, but fear. That night, the alien commanders gathered in their dark crystalline ships. They should have died. One hissed, silver eyes narrowed. They did die. Another corrected, his voice uneasy, and then they kept fighting. "This species," the commander muttered. His clawed fingers tapped the table. "They are not beautiful. They are not strong. They are not eternal. But they do not stop." For the first time, the Elverians wondered if they had made a mistake. On the ground, the soldier who had laughed earlier sat beside a fire with his squad. His body was torn, his blood staining the earth, but his eyes were bright. "They think they're monsters," he said, spitting blood into the dirt. "But they've never seen what humans can do when we decide we don't want to die." Someone asked quietly, "What are we, then?" The soldier's lips curved into a grin, despite the pain. "We're the monsters should fear." The galaxy had watched 1,000 worlds burn. But on that night, on a ruined Earth under the gaze of gods and demons, a new truth was born. Humanity would not kneel. And the monsters of the stars, for the first time, shivered. The Elvarians had seen resistance before. Many species fought when cornered, but resistance never lasted. Fear always rotted courage in the end. Fear always won, but humans did not rot. Instead, they grew sharper, harder, more relentless. Every loss seemed to make them more dangerous. Every death seemed to ignite another fire. It was unnatural. It was alien. The Elvarian High Council convened inside their obsidian flagship, a chamber glowing with pulsing veins of light that rippled across black crystal walls. Their faces were radiant, beautiful, and terrifying, but the mood was tense. "They fight like vermin," hissed General Varix, his voice like breaking glass. "Fragile, filthy, without elegance. And yet they are relentless." "They should not matter," replied a seer, her eyes swirling with galaxies. "But their spirit," she faltered. An Elvarian seer, faltering, "it unsettles me." So the council decided, if brute strength could not extinguish this fire, then science would dissect it. The first trial. Hundreds of captured humans were dragged into biodomes carved into the alien warships. The Elvarians unleashed psychological torments that had broken 100 other civilizations. They warped time, forcing men and women to relive their worst nightmares in endless loops. They poisoned them with visions of fire consuming their families. They played whispers of despair until entire domes echoed with screams. But humans didn't shatter. A mother sang lullabies through the screams, her voice steady even as her skin blistered from alien toxins. A soldier carved words into the metal walls with broken fingernails. "We endure." An old man, who had lost everything, laughed through the pain, spitting blood in the faces of his captors. And in every dome, in every cage, no matter how deep the nightmare, humans told one another stories. Not of despair, but of hope. They spoke of Earth's oceans glittering blue, of forests thick with life, of cities alive with music and laughter. They shared memories of childhood, of love, of promises to be kept. The Elvarians were unnerved. "They cling to illusions," one scientist muttered. "No," whispered another, watching a young girl close her eyes and smile through the pain. "They cling to dreams. And dreams are stronger than fear." The beasts. Angered, the Elvarians released their war beasts. Towering things of muscle and metal bred in vats of agony. They had shattered entire armies. They threw a dozen humans into an arena with one beast. They expected screams. They expected chaos. Instead, the humans worked together. With nothing but jagged rocks, steel scraps, and their own bodies, they formed traps. One distracted the beast while others climbed its back, gouging its eyes, tearing at its throat. A child threw fire made from stolen chemicals. A dying man dragged himself under the monster's legs, holding in place long enough for the others to finish it. The beast fell. The humans stood bloodied, broken, but victorious. And then they did something that froze every Elvarian watching. They cheered, not out of relief, but out of triumph. The council's fear. Whispers spread through the fleet. Soldiers muttered. Scientists stared at their notes with trembling hands. "This is not right," one said. "They are weak," another insisted, though his voice wavered. "Weakness does not terrify," came the reply. The council convened again, their perfect forms shifting in unease. These creatures, they are not beautiful, not strong, not immortal, yet they turn every wound into fire, every loss into fury. What are they? For the first time, silence filled the chamber. Finally, the eldest of them spoke. His voice was like thunder over glass. "They are monsters, but not like us. We were born with claws and fangs. They forged theirs through suffering. We never feared prey before, but now I fear them." Seeds of rebellion. On the ground, within the broken cities of Earth, humans began to spread a single phrase. "We are the monsters' monsters." It started as a whisper in dark cellars. Then it grew louder, painted on ruined walls, scratched into the sides of collapsed buildings. Soon it became a chant, echoing through camps, carried by radio static across continents. Even enslaved, even starving, humans carried themselves with a terrifying defiance. Mothers raised children not to hide from the Elverians, but to glare at them. Fathers taught sons not to kneel, but to spit at their captors' feet. Children played games where they pretended to slay alien beasts, laughing with sharp, fearless joy. The Elverians watched this with unease. Fear, their greatest weapon, had failed, and in its place, something far worse had risen. Hope, the breaking point. General Varix, furious, decided to end the farce. No more experiments. No more games. He ordered the execution of an entire camp. Thousands of men, women, and children to crush this spark once and for all. The humans were lined up, broken bodies under alien guns. The ground trembled. Mothers held children close. Soldiers stood tall, even unarmed. The Elverian commander sneered. Any last words, vermin? The oldest among them, a grandmother with silver hair, raised her chin. Her voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. You call yourselves monsters, but we made monsters out of famine, out of war, out of despair, and still we stand. So go ahead, kill us. You'll only feed the fire. And then she smiled. The Elverians fired. But in that moment, across the galaxy, the truth had already been written. Fear no longer belonged to the monsters. Fear belonged to humanity. Ashes of execution. The executions were supposed to break them. Instead, they lit the fuse. When the grandmother fell with a smile on her face, every human who saw it felt something inside them change. The Elverians expected wailing and collapse. Instead, they got silence. A silence so sharp it made even their alien ears ache. The silence spread from camp to camp, from family to family. A silence not of fear, but of resolve. And then came the whispers. They fear us more than we fear them. We are the monsters they dread. If they kill us all, we win anyway, because they'll never forget what we were. By the time the whispers turned into chants, the Elverians realized too late. Humanity had stopped playing prey. The escape. One night, under the blood-red glow of alien moons, a small group of humans staged an escape. They had nothing but sharpened rebar and stolen shards of alien crystal. But what they lacked in weapons, they replaced with rage. They tore through guards, broke chains, stormed the hangars, and hijacked their first vessel. When the Elverians discovered the theft, the ship was already gone, streaking into the dark of space, carrying dozens of freed captives. That ship was named in hurried paint on its hull, the first monster. It became a legend overnight. The monsters multiply. The first monster wasn't the last. Soon, camps erupted into coordinated uprisings. Radio bursts of static carried coded instructions. Scrap metal bombs tore holes in war beasts' hides. Children planted decoys to confuse patrols. Women smuggled weapons hidden in bread loaves. Old men mapped alien patrol routes from memory. And everywhere, they painted the same mark, a jagged claw, the mark of Earth's monsters. Alien ships began to vanish. Whole supply routes went dark. Patrols were ambushed. Camps liberated. The Elverians, who had conquered empires with ease, suddenly faced an enemy they could not predict, because no other species had ever fought like this. Humans didn't fight to survive. They fought to terrify. The turning point. The High Council met again, obsidian walls glowing with unease. Their voices cracked like splintering glass. They are spreading, hissed General Varix. They are vermin, another insisted. Vermin don't hijack warships, snapped a seer. Reports flooded in. Entire fleets gone missing. Alien scientists defecting after watching human captives defy impossible odds. Even other conquered species were beginning to whisper, if humans can stand against them, why can't we? The Elverians had ruled through fear. But fear was no longer theirs to wield. Humanity had stolen it, sharpened it, and turned it back on them. The message. The first monster reappeared at the edge of the annual sector, broadcasting a single message across the stars. The feed flickered to life, showing the face of a scarred human woman. Her eyes were bloodshot, her jaw set like steel. Behind her stood men, women, and children, all staring into the camera with defiance. She spoke, her voice calm, steady, terrifying. You called us weak. You called us prey. You called yourselves monsters. But you made one mistake. You forgot that we build monsters better than anyone. Out of war, out of famine, out of despair, we're the monsters now, and we are coming for you. The transmission ended. Entire systems fell silent. And for the first time in their history, the Elvarians hesitated to move forward. The Great Rebellion. It spread faster than fire. Other species, long enslaved, rose up. They'd seen humanity beaten, burned, and broken, and still standing. For the first time, they believed freedom was possible. Together, they armed themselves with stolen Elvarian weapons, guided by human tactics, ambush, sabotage, relentless defiance. Entire fleets of rebels flew under the mark of the claw. And at the center of it all, humanity burned brightest. Not the strongest, not the smartest, not the most beautiful, but the species that simply refused to kneel. The fall of the Elvarians. The war that followed was unlike any in the galaxy's history. The Elvarians unleashed horrors from their vaults. Beasts of nightmare, machines that devoured suns, weapons older than their empire. But humans did what they always did. They adapted. They endured. They laughed in the face of death. Every loss hardened them. Every scar made them sharper. Every horror was met with one answer: we are worse. When the Elvarian throne world finally burned, it wasn't because humanity was stronger. It wasn't because humanity was smarter. It was because humanity was scarier. The final words. In the ruins of the throne chamber, among shattered crystal and burning light, a human soldier carved into the obsidian wall with a jagged blade. It was not a name. It was not a boast. It was a warning. Fear the monsters. Fear humanity. Epilogue. The galaxy that feared us. Generations later, alien children still whisper the stories of the fragile species from a blue world who would not kneel, of the prey who turned predator, of the laughter that shook empires. The galaxy had always feared monsters, but now, when they speak of monsters, they do not mean the Elvarians. They mean us.